Okay, in the previous video, we looked at how we actually can create a calculated column. Yeah. So in a calculated column, what happens is that under the data view, we get a value for each row. Yeah. Get a value for each row where we apply a calculation and then we create a column that corresponds to something in the previous columns. Yeah. So in this case, we have tried to calculate whether these values are considered above average or normal. Yep, we use a if condition earlier. Click on this, we click back on this field here. We use a if condition and then we had all we had the formula written, okay? The DAX formula written. Now, on, to create, on the other hand, we are also able to create a calculated measure, yeah? Or a quick measure or a measure. Now, the idea of a measure is to actually do a measurement, yeah? So measurements tend to be aggregated as in like there will be one final number. For example, average is a number. Yeah, average is a number. Even though you have 34,000 records here in this data set, the average is a finite number. So let's just quickly try and plot what's the average first before we carry on with the measure. So just to have some insights, we can actually plot multiple things, multiple visualizations on this chart. So I've resized this. Yeah, I've resized this here. I put this here. I'll click away. Yeah, so that my view is cleared up. And then I will, let's say I put in a card. Yeah, since we just want to see one number. So the card, I'm going to resize it such that it tries and fits the view. Okay, so now the card will just show one number. So I'm interested in finding out what's the average wave height. Yeah. So I've thrown in the wave height here. Right now it says 5.93K. So basically I can click on this drop down to see what is happening to these numbers. They're summing the numbers. I'm more interested. So these are what we call measures, yeah? We aggregate the number to find out what's the average, what's the minimum, what's the maximum, what's the count, and so on. Yeah, there's many others that we can do. But we're gonna change this to the average. So on average, the height of a wave is considered 0.17. Anything above 0.17 is considered above average. Yeah, that's how I classified this earlier. So if we look at our data, let's just go and explore. So 0.187, excuse me, yeah, it's considered above average, right? Because it's above 0.17, right? 0.18 is above 0.17, right? Okay, so why not we just, for simplicity, let's, on this drop down, I'm going to unselect this and I'm going to filter for normal, okay? Filter for normal. So let's say 0.13. Is it above the average of 0.17? No. So therefore it's tagged with normal. And if you look through all these numbers, they behave the same. So that's the power of the DAX formula, where it quickly does a computation here for the average and then goes and checks every single value here on the wave height and then tags it whether it's above average or normal. In this case here, just normal. Okay, so I hope this was crystal clear. Now moving on, we are doing quick measures. Yeah, we're trying to do measures. Yeah, so a measure will quickly aggregate the number. Yeah, we're not interested in every single row. So we can actually create a new measure here. And what happens is a new measure will pop out on our data set. Sorry, in our data set under the field. So this field is called measure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example using standard deviation. Yeah, so I'm going to call this stdev underscore wave underscore height. Yeah. Okay, it's called standard depth of the wave height. Now, stdev stands for standard deviation. Yeah, standard deviation. So now those who are not familiar with what is standard deviation, let me just quickly go to my Chrome browser. So I searched up standard deviation, and not to dwell too much into the statistics, but we are going to just quickly see what's the idea of standard deviation, okay? And I like this website a lot. Maths is fun. It makes things quite simple to understand. Okay, so standard deviation is a measure of how spread out the numbers are, right? So this is a very good explanation, yeah. So we just need to know this in order to perform our task later, okay? So standard deviation is a measure of how spread out, yeah. Let's say I have a list of numbers, right, for the wave height. What is the difference? How spread are they? Are they spread out a lot, or is the difference between them very little? So there's a formula behind it, yeah. So like we can calculate the variance and then calculate square root of variance is standard deviation and so on. So some of you might be quite good at understanding math, but we are not gonna be using these formulas. It will be auto calculated for us by Power BI, right? So the math is not the worry, but the idea, okay? So standard deviation, how spread out is the wave heights, yeah? Okay, so that's what we're going to try and figure out. So we can apply this function, yeah. Now standard deviation has got two types, stdev.p, which is for the entire population, and standard deviation dot s, which is a sample, which is a subset of the entire data set. Now we are not doing statistical analysis. We already have all the data that we need. That's what we're going to assume. And we are going to use standard dev for the entire population. Okay, so that means all the data that we have. Okay, so standard dev.p. Now we're going to apply this standard dev on the, now it, as you can see, Power BI or DAX has already given me what are the possibilities. So I'm interested in the wave height. What's the difference? How different are these wave height numbers, right? So I'm going to calculate the standard deviation of the wave height and then close this, yeah? And then I'm going to hit enter. So this will be applied, yeah? So over here, I have a measure, yeah? You can see the calculator symbol, yeah? Over here, I have a measure which is called standard def of the wave height. Now, having this alone is not useful. I need to plot this out so that I can see the numbers. So I'm going to shrink this and I'm going to click away such that I want to bring in one more chart here, right? So I want to bring in a stacked column chart, yeah? So this will give me the bar chart in vertical, and whether or not I use stacking, it will be determined later, okay? So this is a bar chart, which is vertical. It's considered a column chart in Power BI. Anything that's vertical is considered a column chart, okay? So we take the standard dev and then we are going to throw it onto the values. Yeah. So as I mouse over, I can see that the numbers deviate by 0.09. Yeah. Okay. Now, the question is, so what if the numbers deviate by this much? What are we trying to say? Right? So we are interested in how much these numbers deviate, right? So for example, we can break this down further to see which beach has got waves that are very different, yeah? Okay, which beach has got waves that are very different? That means if you go to that particular beach, if it has a higher standard deviation, it means that at that particular beach, the waves can be very high or it can be very low. Yeah, so you might, as a person who's going to the beach, you might get a variety of feelings. Yeah, so let's take this beach name and put it onto the axis here. Okay, so now we get a bit more of an interesting data set. So apparently at Rainbow Beach, the deviation of the numbers are quite big. That means there are some days where you can get a very high wave and some days where you can get a very low wave. Yeah. The one with the least amount of deviations is the Ohio Street Beach, yeah. So the numbers actually, the wave heights, the wave is not very changing. It's about there. It's about the same, yeah. In relative comparison, okay, to all the other beaches here. Yeah. So this is the way we can create a calculated measure. Yeah. There's another one which is called quick measure, which is we don't have to write any formula. We can just click on this and then they'll give us a list of possible calculations that we can quickly select from, yeah, okay, which is like an intelligence tool. All right, so but in this case we are okay to write the formula for this particular one, therefore we just wrote it. Okay, so this is how we can create a calculated measure in Power BI.